lot of ideas for how I want to use therapy and create additional revenue sources in the future. I really feel passionate about getting therapists access to the best practices and things like EFT without having to go to an institute or pay thousands of dollars.
Hi, I'm Kim Tolson and I'm the traveling therapist. It's my passion to teach therapists how to navigate online private practices and multiple income streams so they can travel the world. I'm a digital nomad with a virtual insurance-based private therapy practice and a multi-six-figure coaching business. I'm obsessed with entrepreneurship and developing tools that can help therapists live an adventurous lifestyle. In this podcast, I will discuss my journey as a digital nomad. I'll chat with other traveling therapists and help you navigate the complexities of running an online insurance-based practice. I'm so glad to have you with me on this journey. Going in-network with insurance can be tough. For example, waiting a year to get credentialed in some cases. Filing all the right paperwork is time-consuming and tedious, and even after you're done, it can take months to get credentialed and start seeing clients. That's why Alma makes it easy and financially rewarding to accept insurance. When you join the insurance program, you can get credentialed within 45 days and access to enhanced reimbursement rates. They also handle all the paperwork from eligibility checks to claim submissions, and they guarantee payment within 2 weeks of each appointment. Once you've joined Alma's insurance program, you can see clients in your state of licensure regardless of where you're working from. This is particularly exciting for me as a traveling therapist, as I know it is probably for you too. You can literally be anywhere and still see your clients through Alma. Learn more about building a thriving private practice with Alma at helloalma.com/Kim. That's helloalma.com/KYM to get started. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Traveling Therapist Podcast. I'm really excited today to have more Goldberger here with us.
Got it, it's a mouthful.
And to have the burger part. I'm so glad to have you today. You've got such an interesting story, so I'm excited to just let people learn about you and what you're doing now and how you're incorporating all of this into therapy and traveling. I'm really excited about it, but I always start out with the question, how did you go from being just a traditional therapist to a traveling therapist?
Sure, yeah. So, I have always been obsessed with travel. So people are often horrified to learn that when I was 7 was when I began traveling internationally alone. My dad would put me on a plane and I would take 3 different planes to go visit my grandparents. And
Wow.
one time I even slept in a hotel when I was 11 in Vienna on an overnight by myself. So I've always loved independent travel, and I love to see different countries. And then the therapy part, that's actually been a journey for me too, because my background is in tech and it's really difficult to walk away from or make time away from such a lucrative career to therapy, but I'm really passionate about it. I love it. I love couples work in particular and EFT focused therapy. So that's kind of the high level.
Amazing. Yeah. So that is interesting. So you were in the tech world and then you kind of gave up the tech world to go into therapy, but almost now you've brought it back to the tech world a little bit, I guess, right?
That's right.
I wonder if you could just tell about that journey for you, where you were and then the therapy piece and now where you've come to. I think that's so interesting.
Yeah. So, it's interesting because I've done a lot of full circle. In undergrad, I really loved therapy and psychology, and I was a psychology major, but I had this kind of feeling that success was a certain type of job, a certain income. And I ended up really pushing myself out away from my interests into things that I thought were more successful, ultimately going and getting my MBA at Berkeley and working in tech, at DoorDash in particular, for 6 years.
Wow.
And during that time, I just found myself really drawn to, actually, I did a workshop on DBT and I just loved it, dialectic behavior therapy. And I decided I wanted to go back into therapy and pursue that passion. And so I did an evening weekend program at the Wright Institute where the evenings and the weekends I was getting my MFT. And then during that process, I actually got pregnant for the first time.
Oh my gosh.
And I deferred a year, and I was entering the year of practicum of having to accrue my 500 hours. And I still felt like I can't quit my job. I need the income. I'm, reliant on it. So I ended up using my maternity leave to do my practicum hours. And I got in through the skin of my teeth, basically, and ultimately graduated with my 500 hours. I walked across the stage with my son, Rafa.
Aww.
I don't even think one at the time yet. And so now I do both tech and therapy. I do them both.
Yeah, I actually love it. We could talk about that because part of this podcast is also, alternative sort of income streams or ways to even use your therapy skills to bring in other income if you don't want to be like tied to that one-to-one client model all the time. And I've got about 8 income streams, and a lot of people I bring on have got different income streams. So I think that's interesting how you've incorporated it. If you want to talk about that too, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, I continue. My attitude with therapy has or becoming a therapist has been, I'm just going to follow my passion and I'm going to see where it leads. I always knew everyone complained about how it can be difficult to make a good living as a therapist. And I kind of decided I'm not going to figure out how this is going to work. I'm just going to start doing things and hopefully make it fit into my life. So, I probably wouldn't have ended up with a baby doing a practicum if I had really thought very from A to Z about how this was going to work. For me right now, therapy is part-time, again, evening weekends. And I'm lucky to have a really supportive partner who takes on childcare and supports me and kind of following all of my passions. I have a lot of ideas for how I want to use therapy and create additional revenue sources in the future. I really feel passionate about getting therapists access to the best practices and things like EFT without having to go to an institute or pay thousands of dollars. So I have a lot of projects like that I'm working on. And a lot of ideas, but it's early days for me right now. So I'm into my associateship and I'm really focusing on learning to be a good therapist, but I hope to apply it in creative ways to make additional revenue sources in the future.
That's amazing. Yeah. And then, I guess kind of what I was getting around to is you're also working for a company. I guess, would you call it a tech company that's making lives easier for therapists?
Tech company. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, can we talk about that a little bit?
Oh, I would love to.
So interesting, I think, especially because most of my listeners know that I'm an insurance-based private practice clinician, and I teach therapists that they want to take insurance in a private practice that they can. But this company you work for actually gives other solutions. So I love to always talk about that and give help around that topic. So I'd love to talk about it a little bit. Yeah.
Yes. So I am the head of provider experience, therapist experience, and growth at Mentaya. And I'm so passionate about this. Even though it's tech, it feels like it is still very much plugged into my therapy roots. And I get to talk to therapists all the time and hear about their challenges and figure out how we can support therapists in having more free time and having more income, and at the same time keeping therapy accessible for their clients. So basically what Mentaya does is, for therapists who don't want to deal with insurance, we say, no worries, we'll take it on. You can tell your client, I'm sorry, I don't accept insurance and my rate is, let's say, $200 an hour. However, I work with Mentaya and they will submit your claims for you if you'd like. We have an eligibility checker, like a calculator, where in seconds, the client can enter their insurance information, see if they're eligible, instead of having to call and wait and get on hold with the insurance company. And we just basically handle all of that so that therapists can feel empowered to say, I don't deal with insurance, but I want to make this accessible for you. Here's a platform that can help you. That's the basic concept of it.
That's really cool. So then you're sort of using your clinical skills, I guess, to work with other providers that might be even struggling with this, should I take insurance? Should I not take insurance? And you try to help transition to this other option, for out-of-network benefits and out-of-network providers.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
That's exactly right, Kim, because a lot of people don't even know that they have out-of-network benefits. And
true.
even if they do know, people kind of think about insurance like the DMV. They just don't want to even open the website. They don't want to deal with it. And then they end up not submitting their claims and they don't get money back. And that's actually the leading reason that clients will drop out. It's just financial strain and logistical strain. We're all doing the same things. And so, I love this one because I get to talk to therapists about like, how do you talk about money with your clients without it affecting the therapeutic alliance? Like, how do you navigate these things? What are your concerns? Like, how are you thinking about managing your time, what you're willing to do to help a client versus what you need to do to protect your time? So it's a lot of really interesting, meaty topics I get to dig into.
It is. It's really cool. Yeah. So, and, even being an insurance-based provider, I put this message out here all the time. Like, you don't want to get on 1,000 panels that are going to pay you a really low reimbursement rate because you're just going to burn yourself out trying to see a lot of clients at low rates. So, I think it's so important to have this working understanding of out-of-network benefits, especially if it's, an insurance company that's not great to work with. You could be on panel with maybe one or two good ones for your location and then use something like Mentaya for the rest of it, which I think is so cool.
Exactly. A lot of our providers might do exactly what you described and might slowly build up their private practice pay business on the side while they might be working, within insurance or within another platform. It's a way to slowly build that extra revenue source, as you mentioned.
Yeah. I love that concept. I really do. And just, something we were talking about before we even hit record is just like living this like flexible life for the practice that you want to have. And this is a good example. And I want to talk about that, but this is a good example of that. Like, you don't have to be all in with insurance or all out with insurance. Like, you can make this a hybrid thing based on like your life and what works for you and where you live. And if you're a traveling therapist, it recently Blue Cross Blue Shield has really made it difficult for traveling therapists. So, things like this are good options for people that are like, okay, well, I definitely am going to be traveling, so I might have to get off Blue Cross Blue Shield's panel. There's decisions to make around that stuff based on your life and who you want to be in your practice. Yeah.
Yes, 100%. Kim, you're making me think of the fact that even just tracking the changes with insurance, the CPT codes that they're accepting, what gets rejected and resubmitted, that's like a whole area of time and effort that therapists have to navigate. And that's one of the benefits of using a platform like Mentaya. There's a lot of platforms like ours, but one thing that we do that I think really helps save therapists time is we track like, oh, we're seeing rejections with this diagnosis code or this Z code or this thing. And we inform our therapists like, hey, these are things you might want to avoid. Or if they've changed, like recently, certain insurance has made it impossible to submit 50 minutes. So they put 45 minutes or 60 minutes. And we help kind of therapists navigate and understand how to like quickly submit, whether it's a super bill or in our case, just like verify a session occurred with the right type of codes that will get clients reimbursed. So they continue to invest in therapy with you.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, so cool. So let's talk about it for a while, because we did talk about that before we hit record, like just living that flexible lifestyle. And you were saying in your experience, even like being remote versus like in a brick and mortar, how that's going for you. You want to talk about that some? So, the remote lifestyle. Yeah.
I would love to. Yeah. Because I recently started seeing families. Before I was just working with individuals, and then my real passion is couples, but I started seeing families, and some of my teenage clients are very, let's see, what's the right way to frame this? They have a hard time with Zoom, pretty awkward. It can be hard for them to open up, especially if we have the mom and dad in the session. And so one thing I did early on was I offered to meet in person, to go on walks. And a lot of my clients' parents loved that. And so I got a lot of pressure for, hey, are we going to do this session in person? But I was finding myself like the driving time, plus oftentimes if, for example, I would take them for a walk and then I'd come back to the meeting place, the parents aren't there. I'm waiting with them till the parents come back. So I'm like, this is really not fitting into my time and my lifestyle and all the things that I want to be doing and juggling. And so, I ultimately kind of had that revelation, and I had to get back to the parents and be like, technically I'm supposed to be charging for my time, including travel time. Before, I just felt really uncomfortable raising that, especially since some of these families are lower income. But it was just ultimately like, I don't have this time to donate to all these things. And it just clicks with my lifestyle so much more. So I do think your message around, how to make things work for you and for where you want to be working from, the time that you have, what you want to do when you get off of the Zoom call, and to be able to be, whether that's traveling or something else, to really feel empowered to doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because I get that all the time. People will say, well, I have to see, I have to have 5 and 6 PMs available, or I'm not going to have any clients. I'm like, no, you don't. It's like you build it the way you want to build it, and they will come. The right people will come to the times you have available.
Exactly. And that's another learning, actually, Kim, that I struggled with early on is, people asking like, do you have another time this week? And at first I was engaging in a back and forth, like, hey, what about this time? What about this time? And then I learned, actually, from seeing how my therapist models it, like, here are my available slots this week, and then giving all of the ones to, and then it's like, I have no other availability, but I'm not opening this back and forth conversation about what works for you, because I've already set my possible times, and that's it. And it always works. People always find a time that works for them.
Yes.
But I think I worry, similar to what you said, of like, oh, if I'm not more flexible, will I not see this client? Will it not work for them? It's hard.
Exactly. Yeah. When I became a full-time digital nomad and traveling, my goal was to be able to see these places where we're traveling to, so I was like, I'm not going to work Mondays. I'm not going to work Fridays. I'm not going to work in the afternoons. I'm just going to do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday with clients in that little block right there. And it's going to have to work because I was just telling somebody this the other day. I don't want to just come sit in an Airbnb in Yosemite, where we are right now, and see clients all day, and not be able to drive the 30 minutes into the park and hike if I want to, So you've got to set those boundaries for yourself around this, especially as a traveling therapist, if you actually want to like experience the places you're traveling to,
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Oh yeah. So how does traveling work for you? Do you just work when you're traveling, or do you tend to just, see clients and then take off and travel? Or how do you incorporate that into your life with Mentaya and clients and all that?
Yes, that's a great
baby.
So I'm very excited. I have an upcoming trip. First trip without baby since having baby. My husband and I are going to Paris and Morocco for 10 days. Yeah, I'm so excited. And actually, this is tangential, but also related. Like, taking that time without my baby felt like a really big deal. But that's another version of it. It's like childcare is work too. So
managing a successful private practice can be challenging, even if you have all the skills and experience you need to support clients. Most training programs offer little to no guidance on running your own business. That's why Alma gives clinicians the tools they need to build a thriving private practice. When you join Alma, you can get credentialed with major insurance payers within 45 days, as well as guaranteed payment within 2 weeks of each session. You can also attract clients who are the right fit for your practice with a free profile in Alma's searchable directory. As you build your caseload, Alma also offers time-saving tools and administrative support, so you can spend less time on paperwork and more time delivering great care to your clients. Visit helloalma.com/Kim to download your free guide to identifying and connecting with clients who are the right fit for your practice. That's helloalma.com/KYM to get your guide.
How can you really enjoy and be present with your travel goals and your travel experience? And for me, though, some people are like, oh, you're really going to go that long without your baby. For me, it's really important to have that time and to be able to enjoy it. And that's a big part of how I want my lifestyle to be. And so yeah, we're flying out my husband's parents from Colombia. They're staying with us, and then they're watching Rafa, my son, for those days. But I will admit that I had to think about it for a while. And I feel like you really have to be intentional about what kind of travel experience do you want to have, what works for you. And I just know from the few trips I've taken my son that it's just not, you can't really be present in the same way, and you can't do the same things with a small child. And so I'm really excited for that trip.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that's going to be fun. So no working on that trip, right? That sounds like just pure joy, or will you incorporate some work in there?
I'm not sure. That's a good question. It's not for a while. It's in a couple of months. I haven't quite decided what I'll do with my clients. I have to be honest, especially with my couples, I would do couples work for fun. I really enjoy
Oh my gosh.
it. It will depend on figuring out how stable our internet will be, where we'll be, what my husband's work. But so it's TBD. But I will share something kind of funny, which is I often like to plan my travel really far in advance, because I don't know if you read this, but there's research that shows that the endorphins and the enjoyment that you get out of planning a trip and thinking about the different options and visualizing yourself in this place are almost equal to that of actually being on the trip and enjoying.
I have heard that. Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing. So I get, even though I'm not going till October, right? I have all these months where I'm going to be dabbling in Morocco on my weekends while I think about things I want to do. And so I'm really luxuriating in the trip planning process.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, it's almost as fun, really. And we move every 2 weeks. So we're literally planning a new every week to 2 weeks, sometimes a month, depending on where we are. But, we're always looking at new Airbnbs, and it is fun, because then we're and what can you do there? And we're researching, and oh, that mountain looks amazing, and that hike looks so cool. And it's also part of the couple building process too. We like to just talk about that stuff back and forth, and yeah, it's really fun.
Kim, can I ask, how far in advance do you plan your different trips?
It really depends. Right now, we're booked out until mid-July. We just booked out to mid-July. So yeah, but we just did that last night. So it was, and that's a month. So it was really mid-June. And then we just booked this in Montana for a month. We're going to go to Montana. That's going to be really cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it kind of depends, but that's generally how we do it. Mm-hmm.
Well, I have so many, I could interview you. I have so many, but I'll leave you with the questions.
Yeah, it's fun. We're having a good time. And, just talking about your trip, it's going to be 10 days without the baby. You probably don't want to work, it's a different, that's a message I like to give a lot too. It's any traveling therapist doesn't mean anything unless it just means something to you. That's all that matters is yeah, I'm a therapist and I travel, but I actually don't work at all when I travel. Or like me, you travel every day, you're always traveling or living in a new place, and you're working along the way, so it's different for everybody.
I love that point, Kim. And I actually think there's also different ways to be a therapist or to be dedicating time to therapy while you're traveling. For example, I've recently started reading more therapy books. I'm reading this book right now called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. Pretty popular. Right. I recommend it. But I realized that in day to day, there isn't always that space and time to both learn, to reflect on how you're supporting clients, to reflect and think about how you can tackle different goals that clients have, where it comes from connecting the dots of different modalities. So I definitely could see myself reading a lot, no matter what, on my trip, and kind of taking that time to develop myself as a therapist. I guess I'd ultimately have to, the idea of having to book a session and find good internet and time my plans around that, I think you're probably right. I probably wouldn't opt to do that. But I think I really like your point that there's a lot of different ways to show up as a therapist, and in different times, invest in different ways.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Because it's some people might be listening, they'll be I would never listen to or read a therapy book on vacation. And other people might be yes, finally some downtime where I can just like relax and digest and take it all in and not be so busy with this stuff. Yeah. So it's just so individualized. That's why I just love this podcast, talking to different people to see how they do it, to help people like normalize and realize and think about like, what is my like style? Like, how do I want to do this?
Yeah. I wonder, Kim, like one thing that comes up for me, I wonder if you have other guests who have spoken to this. I feel like being a therapist really lends itself to a lot of multitasking. It's like you've got to do notes and you've got to do billing and you've got to schedule and you've got to actually have the sessions, and you might make time for like development and treatment planning. And there's a lot of switching costs, a lot of like switching from different modes. And I really enjoy that, but I also find it kind of exhausting, the level of different things you just have to juggle all the time to stay on top of things. And for me, it's interesting, like travel is a moment where I don't have to multitask as much, but I'm curious, as you've spoken to so many people who work while traveling, how do they think about being present and enjoying the place, but also all this multitasking being on?
Yeah, it's so funny that you say that, because I launched the traveling therapist membership this week, which is like going to be, interactive seminars and webinars and that sort of thing. And part of the free preview yesterday, we had somebody come in and talk about strategizing just that, like how to find your flow on the road was the name of the seminar. And it was really good. It even made me think, but she was talking about like the Pomodoro method and, time blocking and trying to figure out the type of flow that's best for you with your practice and how you want to run it so you can live the life that you want to live. So it was really interesting to me, even talking to her about, again, what is your style? Like, what is it you want in your life, as a traveling therapist? And, she was like, some people take off like a whole day for the admin stuff. Some people block it and they just want to do billing like once a week, that kind of thing. So really trying to get your flow, but sticking to a schedule with it so you're not feeling all over the place, especially someone like me. I mean, I get to a new place. It's a little anxiety producing. So it's like, is the internet going to work? What's this place going to look like? Like every 2 weeks, it's like, oh, please let the internet work. So there's an adjustment to it, but then also, like you said, trying to find the time to fit all these little pieces in, And for me, I've had to hire a team of people to help me because I have so many income streams and stuff, so because I wouldn't be able to do the multitasking all by myself, but yeah.
Wow. So like what I'm hearing is creating some structure for yourself, even in this free form kind of place where normally you might not have an agenda or a structure.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're reminding me actually of one of my aspirational income sources that I spend time on, actually, like all the time, which is a weird application I found of therapy is actually helping people achieve their goals. So like motivational interviewing. Have you ever tried using motivational interviewing on everyday people, just like for goals? It's crazy how
not everyday people, but with my coaching. Yeah, for sure. Especially with the traveling therapist part, but yeah.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, I have a background I'm a licensed or certified substance abuse counselor. So, I was trained in the motivational interviewing piece, like, helping people find motivation for wanting to stop using, 100%.
So you really know then. So I was shocked at the power of, I was shocked at how powerful motivational interviewing tactics can be on people without even going into long sessions or doing too much. A friend of mine is a small business owner. She has a beekeeping business, and she had a book offer to write a book. But even though she really wanted to write this book, year after year, 2 years in a row, she missed her deadline. She got another extension. And it got to the point where she was like, my publisher is basically saying, like, this is the last deadline. I really want to, but I just can't find the motivation. I can't find myself writing. So I did the whole motivational interviewing tactics of like 1 to 10. How would you rate this? Why isn't it a 9? All these things. And she just kicked into gear. And we started this group where we're like accountability group, and there's consequences. And her word count. This was like months ago. And one of the ideas we have around, she's really passionate about this as an entrepreneur. She really wants to create some kind of product or service where we use motivational interviewing to help people achieve their goals. But I think there's so many interesting applications and possible revenue sources within using what we learn from therapy.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Yeah. And, I always say this on the podcast, having those multiple income streams gives you more freedom and time. A lot of the time, I have too many and I work too much, but for most people, if you can get a good funnel going with a product, it's a way to bring in more money and share, something you love like EFT or couples work or, motivational interviewing. Get it out there to the world, but also give yourself a little extra income so you have more time to do what you want to do with your day or your life or whatever.
Well, can I ask you about that, Kim? I don't know if I'm cutting into your question time, but I'd love to know, how do you think about, as someone who has so many different income revenue generators and sources, like how do you think about what's too much? What's the right amount? Like what?
It's a good question.
What lights you up?
It's a good question. I'm way more into the content creation piece of it. I'm not really into the following it through and doing all the technical pieces and, writing the emails and the sales copy and all that stuff. That's not for me. So, for me, I've got the type of brain that I think of new idea every single day. Really, I could literally come up with a new idea every day. And I do help people with coaching around it because I love to hear their ideas and help them think of things to do with it because my brain never stops. But for me, like I said earlier, I've had to outsource a lot of stuff because I do have so many things going on and I can't manage it by myself. I have a VA that probably works 40 hours a week, just social media and, Facebook groups and just doing all that stuff for me because there's no way to keep up with it, So I've had to learn that though, because I was trying to do a lot of stuff by myself, like Canva graphics, which she could whip them out in 2 minutes and it would take me 3 hours. So learning I need to give that over to other people helped a lot.
So you outsource the things that you felt like could give you a lot of time back and could be done more efficiently by others. How do you decide how much time you want to dedicate to new ventures, how much time you want to dedicate to your different buckets of things you spend time on?
Oh, it's a struggle. It's a struggle. I recently hired someone to help me get more organized around that stuff. And she had me keep a schedule of every 15 minutes what I was spending my time on, which was super helpful for me to really look at that. It helped me realize things I was wasting time on. And also my boyfriend, he's super practical and statistical minded. He's okay, now this stuff you're spending time on, how much money are you actually making? That helps you decide where to spend your time a little bit more. If you're going to spend 6 hours on something that's not going to generate any revenue, probably should be focusing on something that's going to be bringing in income, rather than answering questions in my free Facebook group all day, maybe I should let the members answer each other's questions and, focus on writing a sales email or something, that sort of thing.
I love that. I've learned something kind of similar to that from my founder. She used to be a product manager at Google and she does this thing. Have you heard of time boxing?
No, tell me.
I love it. So it's basically what you're talking about, which is being mindful of how much time you spend on different things. She's okay, I have a new idea or we need to brainstorm on it. Let's time box 15 minutes for this. And nice. It's whatever we can do in 15 minutes is what the value of this topic is. And it's interesting because I love it because I find sometimes you lose control of your time because you're starting to do one thing and then you go deep, maybe in a Facebook comment response or in texting back and forth with a client. And you don't even realize how much time you've spent. And then you're how come I didn't get around to ABC? Or how come I didn't have more time for myself? And it's because we're not always being intentional about how much time do you want to spend on this? And let's box that in.
Yes. That's really cool. Yeah. And that is a struggle for me. And I'm really working on trying to get better at that stuff for sure. That's why that trading we did yesterday was so helpful. I was gosh, I've got to remember to have a system, and try to stick to it. Even though she said I'm a ping ponger, that's a style, somebody that has to ping pong to different things, that's my personality type. I'm yeah, pretty much.
Personality type too.
So, it's a work in progress, but by no means have I got it all figured out, but I'm trying and I love putting stuff out into the world that's going to help people. So
Yeah.
So pretty passionate about trying to figure out how to make it work. But
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of, have you heard of the time, like urgency versus importance 2x2?
no.
This is also something really interesting related to what you're talking about around how much time you might spend on something like emails or responding to Facebook message. There's basically, if you think of like a box, 4 boxes within a box, and on the top, it's like, how important something is, low importance, high importance. And then on the vertical, you think about how urgent something is, like low urgent, high urgent. A lot of us spend most of our time, guess where we would spend most of our time within that?
Probably high urgent. I don't know.
Yeah, high urgent, and what on the importance?
Major importance, I would think.
Low importance. So
low importance.
Most of our time in the low importance, high urgency box, which is like someone emailing you a question or like a fire drill of something, but it doesn't really matter. And then these things that are like high importance, low urgency, like planning, a trip you want to do, or like thinking about how you want to work differently and how you want to spend your time. We historically just always neglect those things because we're just focusing on the urgent. We just gravitate towards the easier, low important tasks. And so, it's interesting how, to your point around being mindful of time and how we're spending it, I think about that a lot. It comes from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you've heard of it.
Right. Yeah. Yes. I think I read that a long time ago. Maybe I need to go back and read it. That's good. No, that's really helpful. Yeah. So, it's a struggle, and I'm sure you can relate with all these different things you've got going on in your life, and everyone listening can relate because, we just have a lot of things we're juggling. So
100%.
And then, trying to put things out into the world to help others, it can be a lot. Yeah.
I think about, the reason I asked you about how you think about what's too much versus not is I've definitely been in moments where I've realized I'm trying to do too much. Like when I was new mom and doing a suicide crisis volunteering, and I was in practicum, and I was and then I started going back to work at DoorDash. And, for me, there's this feeling where the balls are dropping and you just feel like you're not doing, like you're not at your best. And that to me is often when I realize like I might be trying to do too much.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. For me, I realized that when my boyfriend starts saying, am I even going to see you today? Because I've got my head in so much stuff, so he is a really good reminder, like, okay, this is not the most important thing here in life, is to be in this stuff all the time, so he's very good at pulling me out of being just totally immersed in things, because I really could work on this stuff all day long, if I wanted to. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. But anyway, I feel like I could go on about this forever. But I loved just having this conversation with you and learning more about you and what you're doing. And I look forward actually to seeing if you come out with some stuff about EFT and how to make it easier for people. And because, I've watched the tapping videos and tried it myself, but I don't know everything behind it, Yeah. So I think it's helpful, definitely. And to kind of like normalize it for people to make it easy would be really cool. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. I wonder, Kim, if it would be okay for me to do a plug for Mentaya for therapists.
Sure, absolutely.
Because we are in May, we're in Mental Health Awareness Month. We are offering right now a free promotion where folks can try what we call our benefits checker for free. Normally, we charge $29 a month for it. It allows therapists to check whether their clients have in-network, out-of-network benefits or not. And they can throw it in their website. They can just have a URL. And so we're offering that for free. So I just want to share that, and we can use the promo code KYM.
I love that.
Folks who want to try it out.
Absolutely. That's great. And would they just go to mentaya.com?
That's right.
Okay.
Mentaya.com, they would sign up, and there would be a place for a promo code at their checkout. So they can just write KYM and give it a go for free. I think it's a great service that really, really helps providers take control of their time and deal with insurance less. And so, and if anyone has questions, they can also just reach out to me. I'm more, MOR, at mentaya.com.
Perfect. Yeah. And I'll put all this in the show notes too, so you guys can click through and get in touch with more if you want to. Yeah, for sure.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kim. It was great talking to you.
You too.
Have a great weekend. Enjoy Yosemite. Get some good
I
hikes.
will. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to the Traveling Therapist podcast. For show notes, links, and downloads, head over to thetravelingtherapist.com, where you'll be able to learn more about my journey, the courses I've created for you, and other exciting resources to make your dreams become a reality. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share with your traveling therapist friends, subscribe to the podcast, and if you loved this episode, please leave a review.